mentioned Alice Munro and Eudora Welty and Flannery O'Connor and James Baldwin, which all make sense to me as influences. What is like the weirdest or like most off the wall influence that you would reference for your work?
Sure. Okay, what is the weirdest and most off the wall or influence for my books? That's a really good question, because actually, like, again, I don't think of my influences as weird, so I'm trying to think of like what would be weird. I think people are kind of surprised that I'm so influenced by film and television. So in order to write Woman of Light, I had to really learn how to plot long term, because with a short story, it's 25 pages. So I actually watched Breaking Bad twice, and I went through and I analyzed every single episode and how they moved, and I analyzed the overall movements of each season. And then I read screenwriting books. And I think people probably would be shocked to know that. They think that I only learn from books. But I also learn a lot from film. And my mom is an oral storyteller. And so she actually used to like show up at school and like do assemblies and really embarrass me and dress up and like paint her face and like, she's right there. She's great. I love you, Mama. But I think that the oral tradition is a huge influence. And I also would say music. So I mentioned Bob Dylan earlier. When I was in high school, I actually would go on bobdylan.com and I would print out all of his lyrics, and I would sit on my little bedroom floor, because you don't have like a couch in your little teenage bedroom. You have a bed and the floor. So I would sit on the floor and I would analyze the lyrics, and I paid special attention to the sound and the rhythm. And so I think that's how I developed a lot of my tonal sentences, is through analyzing folk singers and that kind of thing. But I also read a lot of just trash, and I'm gonna say it's trash, and I don't mind. Like, somebody asked me the other day, like, what I was reading, and I'm not even gonna repeat it because I got such a weird look. I'm gonna tell you. So I'm gonna tell you how to find it. I follow a lot of the local bookstores, and I noticed that the Barnes & Noble down on Colorado Boulevard was having local authors come. And a lot of them are publishing their own works, and it's pay by demand. And I actually bought some person's ebook for $4, and I stayed up all night reading, like, it was like Real Housewives of Denver, like confessions. I don't want to sell this person's book, so I'm not going to name the title because it's really poorly written. Oh my God, I'm going to be caught. But it was like a window into a community that I know nothing about. Like really expensive weddings and veil and going on a private jet and still fighting with your third husband. And like all of that was like so strange to me. But also like I read such heavy stuff all day long, so I do like kind of mixing it up. And there was this YA book called Born Blue that I read when I was a teenager. And I also from time to time will dip into the YA section and bring some of those books up and read those, because I read to not be bored. Like, I am a reader. I literally read everything, like the shampoo bottle. I'm like reading it all. So yeah, I think I'm influenced by just a lot. And I will keep thinking if there's anything I'm really embarrassed of. But no, I'm not really embarrassed easily, so. Yeah. Thank you for your question. Hey, Adam, hi.
Yes. First of all, thank you, Westside Books. I know how hard it is to do events. Hell yeah. So thank you all. I'm wearing a tattered cover, but buy your books at Westside. Don't worry.
Thank you. And you've sold quite a bit of my books, so thank you so much.
So, I mean, what's hot right now? What are you reading? What can we buy at Westside Books? Like, what can you recommend to us?
Yeah, so I love Fernando Flores' work. So I don't know if you've read Valley-esque. It's a short story connection. So Fernando is from the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. And when I visited, I kept meeting people. I didn't visit the valley, but I visited San Antonio, and I kept meeting people from the valley that were like, your people need to meet our people from the valley. Like, you guys are similar. Fernando's work is like, I described it as like a punk rock hallucination in the desert. Very surreal, very hip, very cool. He's sort of like a punk rock Chicano, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So I would really recommend Valley-esque. So another book that I'm really interested in, I haven't read it yet, is a writer in her, I believe, late 60s, named Alice Elliott Dark. And the book is Fellowship Point. It's one of those 800 pagers. And Alice had been working on that book for, I believe, 27 years. And I met her at one of my artist residencies, and I loved her short stories. She's such an incredible craftsman. And she's just one of the most humble, smart, interesting people. But I think Fellowship Point, like, I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to see it on a lot of the prize lists. And I love, like, she got a lot of press when it came out. And that means something to me as a writer who's relatively young, to see a writer who I consider my elder, like, having a 30-year break between books and then coming out and it's just on fire. So I would really recommend Fellowship Point. And if you don't have it, can you order it for me too? Okay. All right. Thank you. And I always want to rep, I love a lot of Japanese women novelists, their work right now. So I always rep Mieko Kawakami, any one of her books. I talk a lot about breast and eggs, but I also want people to read Heaven. Heaven is not as well known, I don't believe, even though it was shortlisted for the Booker. Heaven is about a little boy with a lazy eye who's incessantly bullied at school, and he becomes really good friends with this little girl. And it's one of the most philosophical and moving examples of bullying that I've ever read. And there's a new book that was just translated to English, Trinity, 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 by Erika Kobayashi. And that has a lot to do with radiation trauma and generational trauma in Japan. Again, the character is a young woman. You meet her grandma, you meet the community. And I actually did not know that there were Japanese Catholics. And in that novel, the family is Catholic. So there's some mention of saints and stuff that as a Chicana, I was like, whoa, this is all very familiar to me. And so I've actually formed a lot of friendships with some of these Japanese women novelists. And I actually had a friend over the other night, and he's like, why do you have all these Japanese books? And I was like, I don't know how this developed. It just happened. But yeah, I'll keep thinking of more, and I always am down to give suggestions for good books. And I try to post some on my Instagram. So if you follow me there, occasionally I post more than just my own books. How are we doing? Are we done? We want to sign?
Do we have any more questions? Or
Okay. One more. Time for one more.
Congratulations on being a national bestseller.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Oh, hi. Yes.
Hi. It truly meant so much to me to hear you say earlier that we can be all of our people at once. That really spoke to me, and you said it so confidently. So I was wondering, how do you do that? How do you
Yeah.
get there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a long process. I remember that shame thing I was talking about earlier, just feeling so ashamed. I cannot speak Spanish, and I tried learning. I took classes, but as I said, I struggled with basic English and grammar. And so it wasn't something I was ever capable of fully becoming fluent in. And I decided one day, like, I'm just not going to carry around all this shame. Like, I'm going to try as hard as I can to wield the language that I do have, which is English. And I'll talk about the fact that I tried to learn Spanish, but I'm not going to be embarrassed that I'm a Chicana who couldn't do it. And I think that's actually ableist to say that we have to learn languages that we have, if we have a difficulty with it. Not all of us have the ability to learn other languages. I think that I receive a lot of power from my ancestors. They come to me in dreams. I pray to them. They guide me. And one of the ways I'm able to stand tall and proud in all of my backgrounds is that I know that I come from all of them, that they all help me. It's not like I just formed out of one line. I formed out of many different lines. And I would say the biggest thing that's helping me recently that I'm learning through the process of writing my books is that my history is also a history of this land. So the reason I am so many different people is because of historical influences. I am Filipina because my Filipino ancestors came to work the fields. I am Chicana because my Chicano ancestors worked the fields alongside the Filipinos. I am Jewish because my grandfather met a Jewish girl that was put into a Catholic orphanage down here. I am all of those things because of historical reasons. So understanding that you come out of a historical context, I think that's what's going to uplift you to have that fullness in your identity. And Don't allow other people to claim your identity for you. You get to decide who and what you are. And thank you for your question. Are we done? Thank you guys so much.